Welcome to CREGG, Commercial Real Estate Going Green, a lunch and learn webinar series about saving money and energy in your buildings. We're happy to have you here. Today we have Brett Usher with us, and I'm Stephanie Zapalak with Stewart Title Guarantee Company. I provide title insurance and escrow services for the commercial real estate industry in all 50 states and 80 countries. Happy to be here with you all today.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hey,
I'm Marika Erdely. I'm the founder and CEO of Green Economy, and Green Economy is an energy consulting and construction company, and we're involved in all kinds of compliance and audits and retrofits focused on energy efficiency. So a couple housekeeping before we get going. All participants will be muted duration of the presentation. Please, any questions you have, let us know. There's quite a bit of information coming, so feel free to ask any questions, and we are going to record this presentation.
And I'll just go over our upcoming speakers. So coming up on May 26th, we're going to do part 2 of Healthy Buildings with Andy Sagar. The topic will be GPS technology and COVID mitigation. June 30th, we're going to have Designing Green, Building for Health and Sustainability Design-wise with Nicole Cannon. And then July 28th, we're going to do a case study with Suzanne Mellon, Savings in Green Design in the Hospitality Sector, which will be very fun and interesting.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to introduce my friend and colleague, Brett Usher. We work really closely with Brett on all kinds of lighting projects. We buy all our lighting materials from Walters Wholesale via Brett, and so we've become good friends, and I've learned a lot from him, and we work together really well, and always are trying to find the best solution for the customer that meets their budget and newest technologies. So what's important here is we thought this subject of COVID-related products out in the marketplace would be something interesting that people want to know about. There's been a lot of things going on in the last year, and people, as they inch back into spaces, which they're very cautious of, we thought this topic was really relevant and very interesting, in fact. So I wanted to introduce Brett. Brett, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marika. Thanks, everybody, and appreciate being here. We're going to talk about a pretty technical / nerdy subject, and I'm not really Mr. Nerdy technical guy, so I'm going to try to translate what they say to what they've said to me. What I do in my role is I speak to a lot of vendors out in the marketplace, and we're going to talk about some particular vendors which are kind of the world's leaders out in the marketplace, the big manufacturers, your GEs, your Signify, Acuity. Those guys are what I'm really going to kind of focus on, some of their products. And I just want you to take a quick notice. What we're really going to talk about is what is GUV lighting, what is germicidal lighting, why would you use it, and some specific in particular applications for it. Interesting on this slide, some of you are going to know some of these things already. Some of you, this is going to be new information for you. But the sun already is producing, as you know, UVA and UVB, and that's what you're putting on your sunscreen for, hopefully, before you go out and play. UVC, however, is actually filtered out by our ozone layer. So that is naturally occurring stuff filtered out by the ozone, so it doesn't reach the Earth's atmosphere. But what we found very effective in mitigating and deactivating the COVID virus is that UVC lighting, the 256 nanometer UVC lights. So with that, I'm going to show you a couple of slides here to just really have a great time with. On the right, you're going to see visible light and then UV light. You can see the spectrum there between the 200 and the 400 nanometer. You've got your UVA, which is used on mold and kills bacteria. And when I first started my journey looking at these different manufacturers, a bunch of people had UVA product, but it didn't kill virus. And so as I began my journey and my walkthrough with these different manufacturers, I determined that obviously I need to be looking at what is really important to everybody now is how do we deal with these pathogens and these viruses. So go ahead and flip on to the next slide. And what I began to really understand is that a lot of people put a lot of science behind what they're saying. And when I talk about using these large lighting firms and working with these folks, I worked at GE for quite a while, and we used to joke that, hey, we're just a large legal firm with limited manufacturing capability. And back at that time, we were the world's largest company. That's long since sailed, but
Wow.
But when they printed something, you could trust the information that they said. And what's interesting about UVC is, I ran into many manufacturers and they would say, oh, we trapped the virus into our kill chamber. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I can't sell somebody something that says kill chamber in their product. And in the verbiage that's actually used out in the marketplace is you're deactivating a virus. And what's interesting about the COVID virus, if you can see the print here, you can see the time it takes to deactivate some different viruses like influenza and COVID. And you can see, how hardy really is this COVID virus. It's just, it's an interesting, as you look at Legionella and rabies and other viruses, what does it really take to kill these viruses? Go ahead and forward on. And as I said, what you're really doing is you're not killing the virus, you're deactivating the virus, right? And so just to be technically accurate, you're really deactivating, and the radiation will break down the DNA and the RNA and deactivate those viruses. Go ahead. And so what are some examples of, what can we use these products for? Where can they go? And I'm going to show you some specific products in a moment, but pretty much anywhere where people are gathering. There's certain devices that are available for home use as well, but in what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish, we're really working on work surfaces. We see a lot of people really focusing on restroom spaces. But in offices, schools, in the hospitality segment, you name it, people are looking really hard at UVC and how do they get people back to work.
So Brett, this is good for any commercial real estate sector. You've got hotels, offices, restrooms for any of these places, retail, restaurants. This is good for all sort of asset classes and anywhere commercial then.
Yeah, exactly. You can see in the there's on the bottom row there's a hotel there that has some upper air UVC fixtures where those are working 24/7 in that space, continually increasing the air changes per hour by deactivating viruses and freshening the air in that space.
Very cool.
A couple of things that you really need to keep in mind when you think about these products is that direct exposure to UVC is harmful to your eyes and harmful to your skin. So there's certain safeguards that you have to take when you implement a strategy of certain UVC products, and in particular into surface disinfection products. So I'm going to show you those first, and we'll kind of work our way through those real briefly and work our way onto upper air and some other strategies you might want to implement or look at.
So it's all kinds of, so it's basically, these products are great for surfaces and the space itself, not just one or the other, right? So we're going to look at all of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment, Marika. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide. But when we first started this journey, you might remember back when you were getting packages delivered in groceries and things, or you were going out, and we were all very, very concerned about touching a surface. And so Cooper Lighting one of the world's largest lighting manufacturers came out with this line of surface disinfection products. They do a fantastic job of deactivating a virus in a very short amount of time. It comes in high bay lights and different troughers under cabinet fixtures. So they have a variety of different types of fixtures to apply a surface disinfection product. So please go ahead. UL, fortunately, is very active. And so you just have to comply to some pretty rigid requirements and controls procedures to use surface disinfection, because as we mentioned before, not good for your eyes and not good for your skin to be under these lights when the lights are on in that space. So Cooper came up with a control strategy that they got approved through UL, which needed a control panel, a user station. You'd have push buttons to clear the space. So for instance, wherever the point of egress, the door was, you would walk to the furthest point in that room. You would push the button, letting you know that you were going to activate it. You'd have magnetic sensors on all the doors or windows, which were other entrances into a space, to make sure they were all closed. And then you would exit the room, open up that cabinet, turn the key, and push a button to turn it on. So the cost of adding that infrastructure of these additional controls began to become a little more challenging to meet a return on investment hurdle for many customers and clients. But you could see how effective it would be. One of the applications that just made a lot of sense was schools. And with schools, you could put a system like that into a space, turn it on after the class was over, and in less than 9 minutes, less than 10 minutes, you would have the space, all the active, everything would be deactivated in that space. Kids could come back in for the next class. So it made a lot of sense, and we talked a lot about this to schools and for classrooms.
Yeah, this is where we had kind of come up with a example of this, right, in a couple of high schools where we were looking at, based on the number of desks in the space, you were able to design a system that would make sense, right? So all we would really need is that kind of physical layout and sizing to come up with some kind of a solution for a classroom if they were interested in doing this.
Exactly.
Office.
This was just a typical 40 by 30 with a 10-foot ceiling classroom that we used as an example. And you could see, just much like a lighting layout, we put 4 fixtures in the space, and we're able to deactivate that space in a relatively short period of time.
Okay.
And then the manufacturers began to come out with their upper air fixtures. Now, these are fixtures that you can be in the space when the fixtures are operating. So no need for the implementation of a sophisticated control strategy. You don't have the same concerns about people being in a space, and the fixtures will work with the fluence of the space.
So probably less expensive too, then, right? Maybe less expensive.
Yeah, your cost of installation is going to be a much more simple install, because you're really essentially just going to be hanging, like you saw in the hotel example. These fixtures were up against the wall on the back of that space where the air was coming through, and the air handler unit was actually adding additional protection.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask what that looks like for hotels, actually.
Yeah, and you can see in these fixtures, these are only are much smaller wattage lamps. The ceiling mounted fixture there has 4 9-watt lamps, right? That's relatively low, and the wall mounted lamp is only a 20-watt lamp. There's other fixtures that we'll talk about which are 100 watts and more. as more and more upper air fixtures are coming onto the market, you're seeing stuff that's more decorative in its look, nicer and prettier. I've showed you so far some Cooper fixtures as well as some Signify branded fixtures, is what you've seen some pictures of. Again, another example of upper air disinfection. So we talk about upper air and using the fluence of the space, the air movement, the air moving around, the ACH, you know, in the space. If you're operating a building, you probably have 3-4 air changes per hour in that space. Hospital will have a 10 to 15 ACH. So what you're really trying to do with these fixtures is understanding how many fixtures you need, how long will they be on, and you're solving that's really what you're solving for by understanding the UV dose by the lamps, the number of fixtures, and the irradiance, the intensity of those lamps, the watts in this point. You're going to find out how much time does it take to disinfect that space. And these partners that we work with all run through those models and deliver those answers to you. And then as I started continuing to look through, I ran through some of the fixtures that actually have a fan in them. So this particular fixture here, the Aurora by Puro, has a UVC lamp in it. And it also has a fan that draws the air through it. So it's not only using the fluence in the space, but it's also pulling the air through with its fan. And this particular fixture also has the added flexibility where you can order a floor mount and actually push it around into a space and move it around from space to space.
I love those wheels.
Pardon?
I love those wheels.
Yes, it makes it very easy to transport it and move it around in spaces as you see that they're occupied. And we see some people do a combination of both. So some people like them. I think a lot of what everybody wants to do right now is they want to see something that's happened in their space. They want to know when they go into a space that there's something different about the space that didn't exist before. If you're an employee returning back to work, and you see these fixtures installed someplace, you know that there's been a change and they're on. You walk into a hotel, you know that these fixtures are up and they're on. And a way to market and communicate that to your employees and your customers, I think, is going to be something that's very important moving forward. And here is also the similar product, but it's going into an air duct. So now we're moving out of fixtures and now we're moving into the air space, into the air handling units and air ducts. So this is Puro's Defender model, and we'll show you a couple of other models and what they look like. They have their Protector model, which can use up to 6 lamps and and it can disinfect a greater volume of air going through it. In the next slide, we're going to see their full series and lineup, which has some real flexibility to it with the Champion and the Fighter, where you can utilize those on your air coils and begin to really more customize the application that you're looking for. You can see how
something wrong with that. So it looks like there's various kinds of, not only visible, this is more visible, right? You're actually seeing it clean. So there's a psychological side of this really for some of the people that are hesitant to get back into the office, where they could actually see some cleaning happening. And especially if this is going into the HVAC system, it's also,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that these systems have been around and been available for 40 years. I mean, it's been a long time. but their adoption into the market has been very slow. Ironically, there's a lot of money being thrown around, invested into school systems right now, I guess is probably a better way to say that. And I was speaking to a school district just yesterday, and I was asking them what they were doing about the classrooms. Are they looking at UVC? And he goes, "Oh, Brett, I just had to order 40 ballast yesterday because all of our portables actually have UVC in them. They just haven't been working for who knows how many years. So I have to go out and change all the ballast and change out the lamps." And I'm going, wow.
Interesting.
It was kind of eye-opening. I didn't understand that they had that many deployed. And this is an older school district, so their portables have been around for a long time.
Cool.
The final technology I wanted to talk to you about real briefly is one of the ones I found really quite intriguing due to its small size, ease of installation, and low wattage consumption, which is GE's 365 disinfects technology. And this, well, GE has a couple of different fixture types. They have one that would go up into your ceiling, like on your left-hand side of the slide. And then they have these small pucks, if you will. I'll show you the pictures of them here in just a second. But essentially, it looks like a smoke alarm, a smoke detector. And this is actually what it does look like. You can see the pictures in the center there, where it's actually, well, all the ones on your left, where they're actually installed up into the ceiling. It's rather small in its wattage, where you're only looking 3 to 4 to 5 watts each. And this particular installation, as you can see, is where all might be a little frightened. We see it's in a dentist office. Not my favorite place.
Yeah.
But this is actually what comes in the box. It's that simple mounting plate that mounts up on the ceiling. The LPU just turns on and twists and locks. That power pack, that's a low voltage power pack that powers it. So you just run your line voltage up to the power pack and the low voltage wire off to the pucks, if you will. And it's that simple to install. And you know, we try to make sure that we're dealing with these great manufacturers because of their approach to the science, and they're proving out of the mathematics that they say and how it's going to achieve what it's going to do. GE actually took their product and they put it into a chamber, and they had it third-party tested, and they aerosolized the virus and injected it in through the chamber, and then deactivated the virus. So I think they did a really good job of getting third-party data and UL for all their products that they're talking about. So you can see that on the right-hand side, they talk about the different viruses and how long it took to deactivate those viruses. You can see where they were able to get to a 99% deactivation rate with the coronavirus in just 2 to 6 minutes. And what's interesting is you look at influenza down below, how much longer it took to deactivate influenza. So kind of a little takeaway could say, is the coronavirus as hardy as the influenza we keep fighting every year? It's an interesting question. One of the things to keep in mind, right, is it's very important that you're keeping a dosage of UVC, right, below certain levels. And those exposure limits are very well spelled out. And so you can see where GE is keeping maximum effectiveness while keeping below the exposure limit lines allowable.
So it's really kind of the fresh air too, right? So you'd have fresh air when you're thinking about this, you're cleaning the air in a building. So you're going to have, because we really don't know how clean the building's air is, right? You don't ever really know. You go into buildings and you assume that the filters are good and everything. And they're advocating for MERV 13 filters, but this is an addition where you're really got targeted penetration of an area focused on deactivating the virus. So it's very targeted, and the different opportunities, right? You got different based on what the building's requirements would be.
Yeah, I really think there's not a space that can't benefit from this. It's always interesting to think about who is my customer, right? Is the customer someone walking into a hotel in a hospitality space? How do you make them feel comfortable and confident? Is the customer the employees that we all desperately need back in the office? Because if you're not back in the office, someone turns on the microwave during lunchtime and then your Zoom meeting just goes out. I don't know if that's a new fact to any of you guys, but if you hadn't known that, that is a fact. Someone turns on the microwave, your Zoom call freezes up, and you'll go, why is that happening?
Wow.
Yeah, so no microwaves during lunch and learn is a very deadly time, by the way. You've got to just, make sure everybody in the house knows there'll be no microwaving. But I don't. There's every space is looking at how are they going to make it comfortable for people to come back. And I think doing something that's visible, right? And I really think you can put these in your HVAC units, and you can achieve a level of effectiveness there. But you haven't shown somebody, or do you do both in conjunction? And perhaps that's also a strategy. I think there's a lot of different strategies depending on, as you check off the boxes, decide who is my customer. How do I help them feel better? I think, Marika, you and I have talked about schools, and as we talk about schools, is it parents? Is it teachers? Is it students? Is it administrators? Is it teachers unions? Who's really the customer that you're really speaking mostly to? While all benefit from it, you generally have one major customer. You're really trying to get their attention and help them solve their problem.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just to sum it up real quick. Yeah, it's a lot of information. It can be really technical. If I really tried to make it technical, I tried my best not to make it too technical, but it's a very effective strategy, right? It's something that's been around for a very long period of time. When you look at all the options, I think it's one of the most cost-effective of the options, and I think it can be implemented with minimal disruption to your business operations, and get people back to work and back to working. I think is really a great goal for all of us to have.
Yeah, I think from what I've gotten out of this is that there are, whether you're concerned with the surface or an ongoing space like a hotel or a commercial office building, there are solutions, and some, are right out there, like the one on the cart with the wheels, or one that's like almost just like a sensor right in the ceiling, which I think seems very effective and would give, I'm sure, a lot of people some comfort in, especially in an area where you have a lot of people coming and going, right? Restaurants, hotels, lobbies of office buildings, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting where we started really worried most about surfaces, and then it really has morphed into what we're really concerned about is the air.
Right.
And so how do we impact that upper air and give everybody that confidence that we're addressing their concerns.
And I think, Brett, you bring home a really good point that people want to see something new. They want to see a difference. They want to see, that a brand new implementation has been physically put into place so that they can rest confidently that that's happening. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, Stephanie, because people are looking at bipolar ionization. They're looking at lots of different methods. You know, CDC's recognized these methods. They've not recognized others. So I've really tried my best to stick to people who could scientifically prove us something. What have they done? I mean, it really wasn't until June of last year that the Boston University study actually proved that these UVC could deactivate the coronavirus. They knew it worked on other viruses, but it wasn't until that final results were done that was actually even proven. So people have been out in front of this well before, you know, the science was really there to back them. So I'm glad to see a lot of rhythm and rigor now going behind, you know, products that are going out into the marketplace.
Super interesting. So anyone who has questions, feel free to reach out to Brett Usher at Walters Wholesale or me, Marika Erdely at Green Economy, to help decipher what's the best solution for your space.
And I promise if we have another conversation, it'll be much more fun than this one.
Yeah.
This one has been fun.
This one was fun. And if anybody has any questions, they can speak up now as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we can open up the lines, you know, to anyone who, I would imagine people have specific applications that they're looking at this for. You know, if you want to bring that up to Brett and we can discuss it. I see Joel Dobrin's raising his hand. Go ahead, Joel.
Brett, thank you very much. It's great information and a great presentation. Kind of following on Stephanie's point where, you know, you exist in this world and it's very commonplace to you. But the point being just for the average individual, for any person now that's going to be walking to and fro from an office, from a hotel, from a restaurant, you know, I was thinking about with the lighting, I guess, how do we as a population, how are people going to really know, like, okay, this stuff is doing things, this stuff is working? And I know I've seen in a couple of places that I've been in, there's, you know, very, again, to Stephanie's point, new things. There's new signage up saying, you know, we're doing this, this, and this. But is there some specific ways in which people can see that this technology is actually doing the things that you know it can do, for, I guess, on a simple level for the simple person?
You know, I think I have seen a beginning of an emphasis of an organization that's going to say, hey, we've done something in our space. And they had some rigor they were attempting to put around it, but I haven't seen any follow-up from them. You know, like we spend a bunch of time on our, you know, our healthy buildings. We spend a bunch of time on our Energy Star and our Energy Star benchmarking. That's clearly something that, you know, is really relatable to, well, anybody in this business, right? So when we see that, we understand what that is. And I think eventually someone's going to come up with something, some sort of a standard. Sounds like we got a great business model here. We should probably be first to it. Look, I've got about $3.50 in change I'll pitch into this effort if we want to brand something, but I haven't seen someone come out with a brand label to say, hey, we've made a difference here. This is what we've done. I think it'll be kind of complex. It's interesting that we've been in this long, and you know, most people haven't really done much to make a big difference in their facilities yet. So we're at the infancy here. And I think it might be fair to say as well that, you know, I don't think anybody thinks that this is going away. I think it's, I don't know, I hate to think the next shoe's going to fall, but, you know, now we're all talking about this variant or that. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to continue to have some challenges that we have to continue working through, but I think some sort of a solution and a way to brand it is wise.
Brett, we got the question, would signage help with explaining the effectiveness or the process being used?
Yes, I do definitely agree with that. Yes, some sort of a sign or signage. I actually think that GE came up with some stickers that they were handing out, right? So they would do a design and a lighting, a design for either their 365 disinfect or their other fixture that they had. And when people installed as per their design, they would get stickers that they could put on their building. I know they were just finishing up a restaurant. I think it was in Columbus, Ohio, last week or the week before. And they were doing exactly that, putting up some signage of some sort.
Very interesting, really. And I think you're correct in saying it's at its infancy, right? People are just learning about it. And I think also people, when they realize that maybe this isn't going to go away, are going to act. Because I think maybe in a lot of ways, people are, oh, it's going to be better, everyone's vaccinated. But the problem is everyone isn't getting vaccinated. So my fear is, variants will continue to grow and it will be a continuous problem. So it's not, the sad side of it is it may not go away. So why not do something so you know that at least the occupants of your building are safe, right?
Joel, did you have another question? You're on mute. I saw your hand was up. Did you have another question?
I just want to come back. I know you've talked, Brett, about, like you said, about the signage and, this messaging. But I guess, again, as the light technology does its thing, is there a way in which, I don't know, is there a display or is there something that people could see? In other words, so that they really know that the lighting, that the air has really been impacted by the technology. Maybe I wasn't as clear in my initial question.
Well,
Brett, get close to your mic. We're not hearing you very well. We're not getting your audio.
really?
There
Barely, barely.
Oh. Should be visible, right? You'll see the glow of those, and you will also see the lights on those pucks, the GE disinfect pucks.
Right.
And obviously, you wouldn't see the surface disinfection products because no one can be in the space when that's on.
Got it. Okay.
So I guess that's really the only way I can answer the question.
Yeah. No, but I think you did. So in other words, you'll see it, and within these sensors and all, you'll see that it shows there's a detection, if you will, that kind of speaks to the fact that yes, it's doing its thing.
That's correct. And other products coming out. Activity has some new products that are coming out. They come on for short bursts of time, and you'll see lights on those when they actually come on. It won't introduce light into the space, but you'll know that the product has come on for a short amount of time.
Got it.
And I don't know of a way that anyone could really communicate that, hey, we've updated our building other than putting some sort of a placard, or we've made a difference. And if I was checking into a hotel room, I think that's fantastic. If I was an employee somewhere, I would love to know what my employer's done to make me feel safe to come back to work. And if I was operating a bunch of commercial real estate, it would be great to say, this building, we've done this, and this is why it's safe to be here.
Right. Great.
Messaging.
Thank you.
Messaging.
Okay, good. Well, unless there are any more questions, I think we could wrap up. I know Brett's having some issues with his audio that we've had a hard time resolving. So, but I definitely appreciate everybody's time, and Brett, your time and expertise as we all, navigate and figure out the best way to move forward in our spaces. Because we're having some audio issues, if there are any other questions out there, Brett's email, his phone number is up here on the presentation. We'll be emailing out the presentation as well, but definitely give him a call and with your specific questions and your specific applications. Marika, Stephanie, do you guys have anything else?
No, thank you, Brett. This was really informative and really well laid out and organized. And I think for every asset class, this can be beneficial, hospitality especially, making the guests feel comfortable. I think this was really good. Thank you so much.
Very much for the opportunity. I appreciate that.
Very informative. Thank you, Brett. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone, for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Next time.
See you next month.